Okay, so when you hear the name Babylon, what comes to mind? Probably, these incredible ancient wonders, epic ruins, right? Well, the real story is a whole lot weirder. It's actually built on a paradox, a contradiction that sounds more like a riddle from some ancient text.
I mean, just think about that for a second. This quote from our source material it doesn't seem to make any sense. How on earth can a city become a legend, get totally wiped out before the ruins we all picture were even built? It sounds impossible.
So yeah, that is the big question we're going to tackle. To solve this puzzle, we've got to dig into the story of not just one Babylon, but two, and the two incredible kings who basically put them on the map. All right, so in one corner, you've got Hammurabi. He's the lawgiver, the guy whose city is the source of the legend. And in the other corner, that's Nebuchadnezzar II. He's the builder, the one who created the city whose ruins we can actually see today. So let's start at the beginning, shall we? So Babylon's first life, well, it didn't exactly start with a bang. For centuries, it was, just another small town in Mesopotamia. Pretty unremarkable. But then, way back in the 18th century BCE, this king, Hammurabi, comes along and just completely transforms it into the capital of a power that would change the world. Now, Hammurabi was a genius, no doubt about it. A brilliant military strategist, a master negotiator, he managed to unite all of Mesopotamia. But here's the thing, as impressive as all that conquering was, it's not what he's most remembered for. Nope. What really cemented the legend of Babylon was his totally revolutionary approach to the law. And this is a huge deal. Think about it. For the first time, pretty much ever, a crime wasn't just seen as a sin against the gods. It was an offense against society, against other people, against the state itself. The law was taken out of the hands of the priests and put into the hands of judges appointed by the king. That's a massive shift in thinking. So this code also locked in a really strict social structure. It basically split everyone into three groups, and your rights depended entirely on which group you were in. At the very top, you had the Awilim. These are your fully free citizens. Then, a step down, you had the Mushkinim, who were kind of dependent on the palace. And right at the bottom of the pile, you had the Wardom, who were slaves. And here's the kicker. Justice was anything but blind. You've all heard an eye for an eye, right? Well, in Hammurabi's Babylon, it totally depended on whose eye it was. If you messed up the eye of a free man, a fellow Awalum, yep, you'd lose your own eye. But if you did the same thing to a dependent person or a slave, that's different. That just costs you some silver. But, and this is what's so wild, the code also had these protections that were just thousands of years ahead of their time. Get this, women could actually divorce their husbands for being unfaithful or abusive. A husband couldn't just abandon a wife if she got seriously ill, and children, even from different mothers, could inherit property equally. And maybe the most incredible part, if a free man had a child with an enslaved woman, that child was born free. That's mind-blowing for the ancient world. Of course, a golden age like that, it just couldn't last forever. After Hammurabi died, his kingdom started to weaken. And for the next 500 years, that's a long time, Babylon was stuck in this brutal, endless fight with the rising empire to the north, the Assyrians. And they were ruthless. The Babylonians just kept rebelling, over and over again. And finally, the Assyrian king, a guy named Sennacherib, he just had enough. He decided to solve his Babylon problem once and for all. So in 689 BCE, he sent his army in with one simple, brutal order. Wipe it off the map. Total annihilation. And you don't have to take my word for it. His own words are absolutely chilling. And that was it. The legendary city of Hammurabi, the place that gave the world this incredible code of law, was burned to the ground. Gone. Just gone. But Sennacherib wasn't done. Just to be absolutely sure that Babylon could never, ever come back, his soldiers did something that's just unthinkable. They broke the dams, breached the river, and let the water pour in. The charred ruins of the city were completely drowned, literally erased from the face of the earth. But, incredibly, that wasn't the end of the story. A whole new chapter was about to start. Decades later, right there on that same muddy, drowned spot, a new king comes along, Nebuchadnezzar II. And he decides he's going to raise a new Babylon from the mud. And this one was going to be grander than anything the world had ever seen before.
I mean, the scale of this new city was just staggering. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon was probably the very first city in human history to have more than 200,000 people. Let's put that in perspective for you. At the same time, Athens was less than half that size, and Rome was basically still just a village. This was, for real, the world's first megacity.
Okay, just try to picture what it would be like to walk up to this place. First thing you see is this massive double wall, almost 90 feet thick. They said it was so wide you could race two four-horse chariots on top of it. If you get through that, you come to the Ishtar Gate. This thing was covered in these brilliant blue bricks, shining like a giant sapphire in the desert. Then, you step onto the processional way, this huge avenue lined on both sides with 120 life-sized lions, all made from glazed brick. Just imagine that walk.
And that gate, the Ishtar Gate alone, had 575 images of dragons and bulls on it. And these weren't just painted on. Each one was made from individually molded bricks, all pieced together like a giant shimmering mosaic. The sheer scale and the artistry, it's just breathtaking. So this second Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar City, this is the one you know from all the famous stories. Its giant ziggurat, that's the temple tower, was almost certainly the inspiration for the Tower of Babel. And this is supposedly where Nebuchadnezzar built the famous hanging gardens for his wife who missed her home. The only weird thing, no Babylonian text we've ever found even mentions them. Kind of strange, right?
Okay, so we've got two completely different cities, two very different kings, two separate golden ages. Now, we can finally put all the pieces together and solve that riddle from the beginning.
And here's the solution. The legend of Babylon, its reputation for law and justice, that came from Hammurabi's city. But that city was completely wiped out, drowned, in 689 BCE. So the actual physical ruins that we can go see today, the ones archaeologists dug up, that's all from Nebuchadnezzar's city, built right on top of the old one, but much, much later.
Our source material just nails it with this line. The Babylon we can see, the physical ruins, that's Nebuchadnezzar's masterpiece. But the Babylon we remember, the city of legend, that's Hammurabi's city of laws. The legend existed long, long before the ruins we know today were ever even built.
It's pretty wild when you think about it, right? The story of Babylon isn't one simple story. It's two, layered right on top of each other. A legend and a ruin that just happen to share the same name. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other great legends from history aren't exactly what we think they are?